GPO Itahi, hello. My name is Austin Serio. I'm CEO and co-founder of ShockTalk, which is a culturally tailored telemental health platform, and I'm also a member of the Chikoran Shakri tribe of South Carolina. So it's really important to understand that in our communities, there's a large amount of accumulated historical and intergenerational trauma. And as I'm beginning this presentation, I'm going to share two things that are very personal because I want you all to understand where I'm coming from with this perspective. And so the first part is when I was 12, I lost my brother to an opioid overdose. And then, through the continued accumulation of that trauma, unresolved historical and intergenerational trauma, 3 years ago, I had a psychotic break. And so because of that, I never want anyone else to have to go through that again. And people are continuing to go through it because the resources are not there. So having said that, the problem is mainly comprised of a lack of access to culturally tailored healthcare facilities, as well as difficulty finding an Indigenous healthcare provider. And so it's also really important to understand that 70% of Indigenous people live in urban areas, urban or suburban areas, but those areas receive 1% of IHS funding. And so if you come from a tribal nation that is that makes you eligible for IHS services, which IHS stands for the Indian Health Service, you could wait up to 8 months to see a provider if you make it to a facility. And if you come from, one of the nations east of the Mississippi, such as myself, there's many unrecognized folks, and those folks, such as myself, generally lack access to any kind of culturally tailored care network. And so really the greatest need for telemental health services presents itself east of the Mississippi here, where the Indian Health Service operates only 7 facilities. And so that's why we created ShockTalk. So ShockTalk is the first culturally tailored telemental health platform that's creating a network of providers that's accessible regardless of state or federal recognition status. And so that's where we're building our provider network, which is really unique. So our provider network is comprised of licensed clinicians, as well as peer support, elder support, and traditional healers. And so it's really important to know that, again, this network will be available regardless of state or federal recognition status. And we also plan to offer ownership to both clinicians and traditional healers. And so we are really uniquely positioned to build this provider network because of the community connections that we've built. And so we have cultivated a long-standing relationship with USET, or United South and Eastern Tribes, which is an organization of 33 federally recognized nations from Maine to East Texas. And we're also close community partners with the Urban Indigenous Collective, which has a cultural center in Midtown Manhattan and is focused on the tri-state area in the Northeast. And we've allocated 10% of our equity back to UIC to make sure that we are, really supporting community. And so this is our MVP solution. So it's really important to know that Facebook has a huge penetration in Indigenous communities. And so because of that, we wanted to meet, folks where they're at. And so our MVP is available through Facebook Messenger. So folks send a message to the ShockTalk pilot page, and then they get taken to our directory of therapists, and they get walked through our appointment scheduling process. And so here you can just see a little bit more about what that looks like and how folks get, a 15-minute appointment reminder. And so, again, we really want to emphasize that we want to meet people where they're at because this is where the crisis is happening. And again, Facebook has such a deep penetration in Indigenous communities, we knew that's where to meet our users. And so following a successful summer pilot, we plan to expand this approach to both Instagram and SMS. And as well, we've also got plans for a React Native app for both iOS and Android. And so we started development on this in-house, and this will feature, it'll provide a richer experience than the MVP product, and it'll provide full support for peer support groups, culturally tailored content, and our culturally tailored care network. And so ShockTalk will come in 2 tiers. We'll have a free tier that's available, which looks like ad-supported, culturally tailored content to build protective factors, as well as peer support, elder support, and tailored peer support groups. And then we also have a Plus edition scheduled in the works. And so that'll look like no ads and unlimited culturally tailored content. Folks will gain access to our network of licensed clinicians, and folks will also gain access to our network of traditional healers, and they will gain access to insurance support. And something I want to highlight again about our provider network is that because we're going to be leveraging the power of Indigenous culture, we are going to be able to overcome the barriers of state licensure and rapidly scale, which is, again, something that makes us really unique in trying to really address the core of this problem. And so we have a really amazing team. So ShockTalk was co-founded by members of the Urban Indigenous Collective. So Sutton King is the co-founder for ShockTalk and is also the founder of UIC. Ariel Richer is also our lead researcher who is a part of UIC. And we're also really excited to have both Jeff Roth and Rusty Pickens on board as advisors. They were both Indigenous appointees to the Obama administration, and Jeff is currently the vice president of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. So if you find this interesting, if you want to help us out, help us get resources and get resources to community, I would love to talk to you all. And in hand with our community, we'll be ready to break down the colonial barriers to healthcare. Pila hook.